This is my friend Lee Good that I've known for almost 15 years now. And we've had sporadic contact and friendship between being overseas and between his teaching and whatnot. But now you've got a very interesting project that you've sort of grown into through the years. Tell us a little bit about the name of what you're doing here and what your main thrust is.
Well, I'll back up and sort of give the genesis. I grew up on a dairy farm in Pennsylvania, and when I left the farm at age 18 to go to college, I was sure that I would never be a dairy farmer.
Okay.
And I've held to that. But lived near my parents. My father was a teacher. He left full-time farming when I was in my early 20s and went to teaching full-time, but remained active on the farm, making hay over the summer and similar things. So I've always enjoyed both the hard work that farming takes, but also the creativity and flexibility that it offers if you're willing to try things.
Right. And that was in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area.
Right. Yeah, I grew up on it's almost 12 miles due north of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, north and a little bit east. The nearest town is Lidditz, which is known for Wilbur chocolate. Best chocolate in the world. Well, at least since Americans think that America is the world.
Right. We just went through Lidditz a couple of weeks ago, so I know right where that is. There's a town
and
the
Tom
same
Sturgis
name.
pretzels.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Pretzels. We just went, there's a town in Germany called Lidditz also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we moved to Virginia the summer of 2004, and my wife is a physical therapist, and she went to work full-time, and I was a full-time stay-at-home dad for 5 years. And during that time, I first got a flock of chickens, and then once our children were all school-age, then I went back to teaching. I had taught for the 11 years we had lived in Pennsylvania previous to that, but always have been interested in knowing where my food comes from. So a lot of the choices that I've made about raising my own food and projects related to that have been driven by an interest in knowing what the source of my food is. I made a promise to myself a number of years ago that I don't buy any meat that I don't know where it was raised.
There you go.
So we don't buy meat in the grocery store, except occasionally it's something that's really specialty that, if a recipe calls for something that I don't do. But I cure my own bacon and hams. I should make one caveat. I do buy fish from time to time.
That's not meat, so we're
well,
good.
Yeah, I mean, so seafood,
Right.
which I can't raise, although I'd rather eat fish that I caught.
Absolutely.
But anyway, and part of that is the more closely I'm tied to the food, the more I know I'll respect it. So I get my lamb from a friend. We don't have lamb often. When we do, we really enjoy it. But our Thanksgiving turkey is raised just a few miles from here.
That's great.
So that part of the intentionality is not going for the least expensive food. And for, I think, most of the last 60, 70 years, the American agriculture system has tried to economize and provide the least expensive options. And some of us have slowly come to realize that that's not what's best for the earth.
Nice.
Friends with skills.
Man, that was really sweet.
Planting garlic. And Farmer Lee is herding the cows. This is Peaches, the mom, and Plum, the baby. And how old is Plum?
About a week.
Wow. And then this other
Bill
little
Bob's the playmate. Babette is Bill Bob's mom. Babette's mom was baby.
Yeah.
So I went with the French for baby.
Oh. Well, Peaches is
Maybe
looking
I'll have
pretty protective.
I'll have to have a kinder too.
Yes.
Kind. I can name one Das Kind. That would be fun. The child. Yeah. There you go. I'm thirsty. Yeah, they're simple. Every day we just have a good snuff fest. That's about all you want.
He was such a cute little calf. Nibbling on flowers. Last time we were here, I had some video of some 3 little pigs, and I said, where are they? And Lee said they are at a friend's house eating acorns. Isn't that great? That just sounds like a children's story. A week-old cat. Staying right near Mommy, just like our grandson. Oh no, my path is blocked by large animals. How will I get past? I've walked through a few cow pastures in my life. I'm actually not worried. Lee said he grows his own mixture of grasses that he's feeding them. Yeah. Can I come by, fella? Thanks. There you go. Man over beast. How about that? Watch where I walk. Oh, cutie. Hey there, cutie. Hey, kitty, kitty, kitty. Farm cat. Come on. Come on.
So tell us a little bit more about the ethic of the land. That's an interesting principle that you have going here.
So my decision to not buy meat and my desire to know where the food that I eat comes from, including our gardening, is also an interest in accountability for how we treat the land.
Mm-hmm.
There are many wonderful people who've done a lot of thinking about from Wendell Berry and Wes Jackson of the Land Institute in Salina, Kansas, to more locally here, Joel Salatin in Swope, Virginia, is someone who's known for rotational grazing and intensive management. The idea is based on several principles. The one is, if we pay attention to what the animals and the land are telling us, we can learn a tremendous amount about what care of the earth looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so today I moved my small herd of pigs to a pasture with a good supply of grass, but also oak trees that are dropping their acorns.
Mm-hmm.
And it took all of 5 minutes for those pigs to find those acorns, and they were happy as can be, just hoovering them up.
Right.
And so thinking about how Oh, by the way, I should introduce Belle. This is our Great Pyrenees who loves people, but also can be a bit of demanding for attention.
Yes.
But also keeps our chickens safe.
Oh,
There you
nice.
go.
Yeah, they're herders, aren't they? And guard dogs.
They're guard dogs, companion guard dogs. They don't herd in the border collie sense,
Right.
but they are protective, highly protective.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's great at it.
Thank you. Hi, Bill. Welcome, Bill.
So, along with that is the idea that every day is a chance to learn. And if I'm paying attention and something's not going right with my cattle, I can learn so I can avoid it next time. So my cattle got fresh grass. I will move the fence for them daily, so they trample less and eat more of it. It's sort of like serving the broccoli at the beginning of the meal and the ice cream at the end.
Right. Motivational.
Well, yeah. So if I opened the whole pasture to them, they would tramp down half to 2/3 of it, and then the species they don't like would come to dominate, because those are the ones that aren't eaten.
Right.
Anyway, so those pieces have slowly been building. I have chosen to take a sabbatical from teaching to focus on farming full time, and I don't know how long that will last, but it certainly is going to last for the 2020 year. Another saying I have that I'm fond of saying is it's easier to take the cow to the grass than take the grass to the cow.
There you go. Absolutely.
Or certainly is better for the earth to do it. So I have a mobile cow and calf herd that I take the animals to pastures that quite a few different people own and graze them intensively, and then take them off and then bring them back a month or a month and a half, depending on rainfall, later. So cattle are what I spend most of my time and energy on, managing pastures and making hay for winter and drought times. And the pigs and the chickens are part of that too, although at this point they aren't the focus of what I do. But the chickens are the cleanup crew. They go in and once the larvae are growing in the cow pats, they scatter the manure looking for the grubs that grow, the fly larvae that grows in the manure, and that way that next time the cows come back to graze, there's no pat of manure for them to avoid.
It seems like you've taken your science, the science of farming, but you've brought the experience, the intuition that can come from the animals and the land together, trying to put it together somehow, so that you're not just more efficient, but the land is taken care of. Is that close?
That's definitely a goal. Yeah.
Okay.
My goal is that every piece of property that I rent is in better shape when I'm done with it. And by better shape, I mean that the soil is deeper, there's more organic matter, it has sequestered carbon. The ability of plants to sequester carbon in a rotational grazing setup is phenomenal. Every time a cow eats off a plant, the amount of plant that was eaten is an equivalent amount of roots die in the ground and build carbon as bacteria decompose them and turn them into organic matter that's stable in the soil. And so rotationally grazed systems can sequester tremendous amounts of carbon. And so that's, I mean, the big picture for me is that I have a desire to raise food that will nourish people in a way that has the least carbon footprint. And some days I do well at it, and some days I struggle, but I'm always trying to learn how to do that.
What are some of the things that you're producing?
So my main product that I sell is grass-fed beef. I sell whole, half, and quarter animals that are butchered locally, and the customer orders the cuts they want from the butcher, We also have 100 layers that we sell eggs from. And I'm beginning to think about some other possibilities as well. At this point, the pigs, I just have a few pigs, and it's just for our own personal use.
They're not pets, right?
No, well, I like them.
Right.
I definitely.
You have names for them? Not yet?
Not really. Just sort of fun names like Puddinhead.
Yeah.
It's a silly one. And,
Gotcha.
my cows all have names.
I'm sure.
Every last one of them has a name. And so there are. I also this summer, along with a friend, cut down a bunch of ash trees that were dying from the emerald ash borer, and we milled a bunch of ash lumber. And at some point in the future, we'll begin to do some projects with it, flooring and maybe some cabinetry. So I'm open to other ideas.
That's great.
That would be winter work when there's no hay to make and less moving of the cattle.
I remember once you had me out trimming some old trees that were down in a field locally. Man, that was some of the hardest work I ever done. It's just hard climbing through those things to start with.
Yeah.
Do you do that kind of thing anymore?
Overgrown fence row. I do. Yeah. I like to hire young bucks to help
Absolutely,
me do
right? Well, what do you think? I mean, you've done a lot of cooking as well. I mean, you take some of these products and make I don't know, salsa. I mean, I hear you're an excellent cook. I've had a couple of your breakfasts. So I don't know. Are you looking somewhere in the future on that?
At this point, I'm not interested in monetizing that. I know some people are doing it, but I do have a vision for teaching some classes on food preservation. So today I canned one canner full of quart jars of chicken broth. We had hens that we had butchered after they were done laying, and cooked them, roasted them in the oven, and then added water and cooked them until they were soft, and then took all the meat off and put that in pint jars and covered the bones with water and boiled that till I had broth, and then canned the broth. And I've now done enough times that I feel confident that I can get a high quality product every time. One that's safe, that nobody will get sick from. I follow best food practice guidelines. And then I also did beef. So one of my beef customers ran out of room, and what he had left was his soup bones.
Right.
And I said, I'll take them home and do them for it's a good close friend that we do favors for each other frequently. So my other canner had 5 quarts of broth and 2 pints of meat from the bones. So I roasted the bones in the oven and then put them in a stock pot and added water and cooked them until the meat fell off the bones, and then strained it carefully so I got a good clear broth.
These make great presents when you go visit friends, I guess.
They do. They are definitely appreciated.
Hey, bone broth is a big thing now for health.
I'm aware of that. Yeah. And we sort of take it for granted. And you mentioned salsa. Yeah, I think it's a poor summer if I don't have at least 6 different types of salsa in the root cellar.
Nice.
Because they each have their niche. You know, the peach salt the fire roasted peach salsa. My sister got me on to doing that. Oh my gracious. And the corn and black bean salsa, and then the habanero salsa, and they each have their place.
Hey, speaking of root cellars, tell us about your other project you have in there.
The home brewing.
Well, we've enjoyed this quite a bit.
So, about 12 years ago or so, a good friend of mine invited me to start home brewing with him, and we home brewed together for a while, and I learned the ropes on how to do it. And then another fellow moved to the area, and I found out that he home brewed and did what's called all grain, where you actually start with somebody malts the barley for you, but then you start with the grains and go from there. So
you're not getting a package.
Right.
You're starting with much more, way further back in the process.
Exactly. So you create a recipe from what you know and what you learn from others. Choose the yeast, choose the hops you're going to use in the process. And so we commit a 4.5 to 5 hour block about once a month, and we brew together, and that's also a good way to make friends.
That's right.
That's
I
the
was
truth.
going to ask about that particular aspect. You're very networked in this whole area. And I think you've done that intentionally. But you're learning from others and their best practices, and they're learning from you. And you're a teacher anyway, so you're going to try to pass on to others and to younger people some of these principles.
I feel one of the strengths of the way we've approached it as a family is that we've taught our children how to cook and to value really good food. And so now that our youngest is a sophomore in college, and we are not taking children to soccer practice and to other events and attending their things, I have a chance to think about, okay, who else can I include in that? And so I've done some. There's a young fellow who's actually renting some garden space from us to raise food, and I occasionally help him and trade eggs for some of his produce. And I learn from him. I mean, that's part of the joy of seeing what things have worked for him, and how I could have fewer weeds and more to eat from the same amount of energy inputs.
Some of what you're doing, would it be considered organic?
So I am not certified organic, and part of that is a bit of frustration with the USDA organic standards, but functionally my food is raised on the organic standard. So I have very few inputs for my animals in the way of antibiotics, only if an animal is ill with the chance of a long life ahead of them. You know, an older animal who has lived a good long life, we make sure they're comfortable, but not. We do not prophylactically use any medications. It's all good herd health care, but not. I rarely have to treat an animal for that. So, as far as it goes, I try to live toward the organic standard, but the process of getting certified because I do direct marketing, and the people who buy from me, I'm completely transparent on what we do. They know
They know your standards.
that's a level of accountability that's
Yes.
even beyond organic.
I hear ya.
Now, I don't want to limit anything of where you're going or what you're doing, but I'd like to have you formalized this place? Do you have a name? Do you have a site where people could go to and check you out?
Well, yeah, good question. The website is Cedar Heights Farm. Our official name is Cedar Heights Farm LLC. It's now an official in Virginia, but I will. And our Facebook page is also Cedar Heights Farm. That's not my vision. We have a daughter who's coming home for a couple of months in December, and I'll get her on that to help me out, because she had done a lot of work earlier.
Right.
I mean, I'm responsive. If people message me through Facebook, I try to pay attention at least once a week and respond to that kind of thing. Or if they use the email, chfarmva@gmail.com.
I'd like to put this data in the description of this particular video, if that's okay with you.
Be glad to.
Okay, great.
And I do want viewers to know that having known you several years, we see that you are a guy who can do a little of everything. And not many men or women are like that these days. But you have a variety of knowledge, and like when Kevin had questions about living off the grid, you're the one that he wanted to talk to.
Right.
Exactly. You just know a lot of stuff, and it seems like it starts with science, but it goes beyond that. It's very practical.
Well, staying creative is important, and inquisitive.
Yes.
So asking questions, and I have the good fortune. My parents' area of interest and expertise was with plants and animals. They were both trained educators. My father, a biology teacher, and machines were useful tools, but it wasn't his love. My father-in-law, my wife's dad, machines have been his life. He has a metal fabrication and repair shop, and I've learned from him that every machine can be fixed. Every machine. Now, whether it's worth your time and effort,
Right.
but it maybe the education is in tearing it apart and figuring out what's wrong. There's a washing machine sitting waiting for me to tear into it to replace the bearings on it.
It's just another toy. It sounds
Well,
like.
and that's a gift that he gave. That he
Right.
said, yeah, you can fix that. So during our child rearing years, when I didn't have time for that, I'd show up and I'd say, "Hey, Daddy, I have a gift for you." And he'd smile. "Oh, what is it this time?"
Yeah.
"Well, the clippers isn't working quite right. Could you take a look at it for
Yeah.
me?"
Right.
Or the oven or whatever. So I'm beginning to learn to do more of that myself, taking on more of those projects. But also being willing to, YouTube's an amazing source that you can watch 5 different people do it.
Right.
This spring when we castrated piglets, I first watched 3 or 4 YouTube videos for a refresher. I've done it before, but I like to be reminded, and maybe somebody's come up with something that's even better way that I hadn't seen before. So learning from others, asking lots of questions. I have many friends in the area who are farming, who I try to learn from. That's and in reality, part of the decision to farm full time is also a recognition that I love the learning that comes when you just open your eyes and ask questions. I mentioned earlier the cattle are constantly willing to be good teachers if you're just paying attention. And one story to tell on myself, my wife rolls her eyes, but she understands. This spring, I had just moved the cattle to the meadow outside our bedroom window, and they were near the house, and in the pre-dawn time, 5 o'clock in the morning or so, window was open, and I heard a cow out there tearing off grass and munching. I just stuck my wife in the ribs. I said, "Listen to that." She said, "What?" I said, "Listen to that. The cow, she's eating." I said, "That's a happy cow."
That's right.
And she, just sort of shrugs. But she understands that just makes me so happy.
Yes.
To help a cow do what they're made to do. They're incredibly efficient at taking sunlight and turning it into protein. It's just amazing. And so learning how to do it so that they do what's best for the land has been a real joy.
Well, Lee, thanks for taking time with us and talking to us on our YouTube channel. And it's been very interesting. And you folks feel free to check in on his Facebook site and his website. I think you'll learn a lot. So thanks for your time, Lee.
You're welcome. Thanks for chatting.